The fountain pen had outlived 2 funerals. It had outlived 1 divorce that never happened because he died first. And it had outlived 11 years of being the only steady thing in Odette Fontaine's hands. She was not thinking about the pen when she picked it up that Friday evening. She was thinking about the dress. The dress hanging on the back of her office door. Red. Sleeveless. Bought on a whim 3 weeks ago and never worn. Why never worn? Because every time she reached for it, a small voice reminded her. She was 44 years old. Built like a woman who had survived things. Not a woman who got to be looked at. Tonight, she decided the voice could stay silent. The offices of Delacroix Maritime and Trade sat 2 floors above a courtyard in the French Quarter. Magnolia trees dropped white petals onto wrought iron balconies. The air always smelled faintly of the river. Odette had worked there for 6 years. She kept the books. She kept the calendar. She kept, more than anyone in that building realized, the entire company from collapsing under weight that had nothing to do with shipping manifests. Julian Delacroix owned the company on paper. In the parts of New Orleans that never made the society pages, he owned considerably more than that. He was 39, broad through the shoulders in a way that made tailored linen look like armor. Known throughout the Port District for 2 things. He never raised his voice, and he never forgave twice. Odette had watched him for 6 years from behind a desk stacked with ledgers. In 6 years, he had never once looked at her the way men look at a woman they've noticed. She told herself that was fine. She had a daughter to raise, a mortgage to carry alone, and no room left in her life for a man who kept a gun in his desk drawer beside his reading glasses. Tonight, there was a fundraising gala for the Port Workers Relief Fund at the Hotel View Care. Julian's usual financial liaison had been arrested that morning on an unrelated tax matter, which left exactly 1 person in the building who understood the real numbers behind Delacroix Maritime well enough to stand beside him in a room full of men who would be looking for weakness. That person was Odette. She hadn't planned to wear the red dress to a business obligation. She'd planned to wear it nowhere at all if she was honest. The way she planned a lot of things she never followed through on. But her tailored gray suit was still at the cleaners after a spilled thermos of coffee that morning. And the boutique 2 doors down only had 1 dress left in her size. And something in her, tired and reckless in equal measure, said fine. Then, let them look. She stood in front of the mirror in the executive washroom and barely recognized the woman staring back. The dress moved when she moved. It didn't hide the width of her hips or the softness at her waist. It framed them like they belonged to someone worth looking at twice. Her hands shook slightly as she clipped her hair back. 44 years old. And her pulse was doing something it hadn't done in a decade. When she stepped out of the elevator into the marble lobby, Julian was waiting by the door, checking something on his phone. He looked up out of habit rather than interest, the way a man checks a clock. Then he stopped checking. His jaw shifted first, a small, involuntary tightening. His eyes moved once, slow, from the curve of her shoulder to the hem brushing her knee. And something crossed his face that Odette had genuinely never seen there before. Not indifference. Not the polite blankness he wore like a second suit. He looked like a man who had just discovered a door in his own house he never knew existed. Ready, she asked. Because someone had to say something. You changed your dress, Julian said. His voice came out lower than usual. The other one had coffee on it. I noticed. He didn't explain what exactly he'd noticed. He simply held the car door, and when his hand brushed the small of her back guiding her in, it stayed there half a second longer than the gesture required. Neither of them mentioned it, but the silence in the car on the drive to the hotel felt different than every silence they'd shared before it. Charged, deliberate, the kind of quiet that comes right before someone decides to stop pretending. The Hotel View Care ballroom glittered with chandeliers and old money. The kind of room where every handshake was a small negotiation and every smile had a price attached. Julian moved through it the way he moved through everything. Unhurried. Absolute. Men stepping aside without seeming to notice they were doing it. Odette stayed close at his side. A stack of figures memorized behind her calm expression. Ready to correct any number a rival tried to twist in Julian's presence. She didn't expect Councilman Desmond Vale. He found her near the bar while Julian was pulled into a conversation with the harbor commissioner. He introduced himself with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Vale was polished in the way certain men are polished specifically so their cruelty slides in easier. "You must be new," he said, looking her over slowly. Delacroix usually keeps his staff a bit more, well, corporate. "I've been with the company 6 years, Councilman." 6 years. He said it like it explained something unflattering. "And here I assumed a woman your age in a dress like that was someone's date. My mistake. I suppose everyone finds their niche eventually." Odette felt the words land exactly where he intended them to land. Somewhere just beneath her ribs. In the place that still remembered every room she'd ever been made to feel too old, too soft, too much for. She kept her spine straight. "My niche," she said evenly, "is knowing precisely how much your dock leasing proposal would cost the city in unreported tonnage fees. Councilman Vale, would you like to discuss it here, or somewhere with less champagne and more paperwork?" Vale's smile flickered. Just once. Before he could answer, Julian was there. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't even raised his voice. He simply arrived. Close enough that the temperature around their small circle seemed to drop. And looked at Vale with an expression Odette had only ever heard about secondhand from the men who worked under him. "Is there a problem here?" Julian asked. It wasn't really a question. "No problem," Vale said, recovering fast. His eyes flicking toward Odette one last time, cataloging her the way a man catalogs something he intends to come back for. "Just getting acquainted with your very capable, very underestimated employee." He walked away before Julian could answer that. Julian didn't speak until they'd stepped out onto the hotel balcony, away from the noise, the river wind pulling at the loose strands of Odette's hair. "You should have called me over the second he opened his mouth," Julian said. "I've handled worse than a councilman with a bruised ego." "That's not the point." "Then what is the point, Julian?" He turned to face her fully then, and for a moment neither of them said anything at all. The chandelier light spilled through the tall windows behind him, catching the sharp line of his jaw. The tension banked behind his eyes. "The point," he said finally, his voice quieter now, "is that I've watched men look past you in that office for 6 years and told myself it didn't matter. Because it wasn't my business who noticed you and who didn't." Odette's breath caught somewhere in her chest. "And tonight," she asked, "tonight a man I don't respect looked at you like you were something he could take. And I wanted to put him through that window." The confession hung between them, unexpectedly raw for a man who measured every word he ever spoke. "I'm not something to be taken, Julian," she said quietly. "I never was." "I know that," he said. "I think I've known it longer than I let myself admit." He reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of hair back from her cheek, the way he had brushed his hand against her back in the car. Deliberate now instead of accidental. Odette's pulse climbed into her throat. "Then why now?" she whispered. "Why tonight?" "Because tonight you finally let yourself be seen," Julian said. "And once I saw you, I couldn't unsee you if I tried." Neither of them moved to close the last inches between them. Not yet. But something had shifted permanently in the space where their silence used to live. And both of them knew it. The competence reversal came 4 days later. And it came from a place Odette hadn't expected. Vale's office filed a formal complaint against Delacroix Maritime, alleging discrepancies in the port tonnage reports Julian's company had submitted for federal review. It was the kind of paperwork trap designed to bury a man in subpoenas long enough for his competitors to seize his contracts while he was distracted defending himself. Julian's lawyers spent 2 days panicking over it. Odette spent 2 nights at the office with the fountain pen and a legal pad, cross-referencing shipping manifests against port authority filings until 3 in the morning. And on the 3rd day, she walked into Julian's office and set a single folder on his desk. "Vale didn't file this complaint because he found a discrepancy," she said. "He filed it because he needed a distraction while his own people ran a shell operation through the same port lanes. I traced 4 shell companies routing unreported cargo straight back to a man on his campaign finance committee." Julian stared at the folder, then at her. Something between disbelief and awe settling into his features. "You found this in 2 days." "I found this in 6 years of nobody bothering to ask what I actually do here," Odette said. I used to be a forensic accountant, Julian, before my husband died and I needed something steadier. Everyone assumed I just kept your calendar. I never assumed that. No, she said softly. You didn't. You just never asked either. He came around the desk slowly. And this time there was no hesitation in the way he reached for her hand. I'm asking now, he said. Everything. All of it. I want to know all of it. That was the night he told her about Camille. They sat in his private study above the courtyard. The windows opened to the sound of a distant trumpet drifting up from Bourbon Street. Julian poured 2 glasses of bourbon he barely touched. My sister, he said, staring at the glass instead of her. 12 years ago, she got caught in the middle of a territory dispute that had nothing to do with her. And I was 3 minutes too late getting to her. Odette didn't say anything. She simply reached over and took his hand. And Julian let her, his grip tightening like a man holding onto something that might disappear if he loosened it. I decided after that I would never let myself care about someone the way I cared about her, he said, because caring got her killed. Caring is a door I leave open for someone to walk through and take everything. And now, Odette said quietly, and now you walk through it anyway, Julian said, and I don't know how to close it again. I'm not sure I want to. The retaliation came 3 nights later. Fast and ugly, the way these things always come once a cornered man runs out of legal options. Odette was walking to her car outside the office when 2 men she didn't recognize blocked her path near the courtyard gate. One of them held up a phone with a photo already loaded on the screen. Her daughter Lily, walking home from school that afternoon, unaware she was being photographed. Councilman Vale thought you should reconsider what you found in those shell company files, the taller man said. Before someone reminds your daughter what happens to people who get too close to the wrong business. Odette's blood went cold, but her voice, when it came, didn't shake. You tell Vale, she said, that I have copies of everything in 4 separate locations, including with a federal contact who has no connection to Delacroix Maritime at all. If anything happens to my daughter, all of it becomes public within the hour, and he goes down with everyone he's protecting. The men exchanged a look that suggested this had not been the plan. That was when Julian's car turned the corner, headlights cutting across the courtyard, and both men vanished into the dark before he'd even brought the vehicle to a stop. He was out of the driver's seat before the engine died, crossing the distance between them in long, furious strides, his hands framing her face, checking her over with an urgency that told her exactly how close he'd come to losing his composure entirely. Tell me you're not hurt, he said. I'm not hurt, she said. Julian, they had a picture of Lily. Something in his eyes went perfectly still, perfectly cold. The kind of calm Odette suspected men in his world learned to fear more than shouting. He touched what's mine, Julian said quietly. That ends tonight. He didn't go to the docks with an army. He went with 4 men he trusted absolutely. And he went because Vale had made the mistake of threatening a child to force silence from a woman who had already decided, 6 years into a quiet life, that she was done being invisible. Odette refused to wait at home. She stood beside Julian on the warehouse floor near the port that night. In the humid dark, the smell of diesel and river water heavy in the air. And when Vale arrived expecting to negotiate with a frightened businessman, he found instead a man who had already made his choice and a woman who had already made hers. You threatened a 16-year-old girl to protect a shell company scheme, Julian said, his voice carrying easily across the empty warehouse. You made this personal, Desmond. That was the last mistake you were ever going to get to make in this city. Vale's bravado cracked visibly under the weight of a room that suddenly had no exits he controlled. Delacroix, let's be reasonable. I stopped being reasonable the moment your men photographed her daughter, Julian said. He didn't need to say anything else. His men moved forward. And by morning, the federal contact Odette had quietly cultivated years earlier during her forensic accounting days had received, through an anonymous but thoroughly documented source, every shell company record tying Vale's campaign finances to unreported port fraud. Vale's political career ended within the week. Quietly, publicly, and completely. Julian never told Odette exactly what happened to him inside that warehouse, and she never asked. Some things she'd learned, A person chooses not to know so they can keep loving the man who protected them without flinching from the cost of it. 6 months later, the offices of Delacroix Maritime and Trade carried a second name on the glass door. Fontaine and Delacroix Trade Group, painted in gold letters that caught the morning light spilling through the courtyard magnolias. Odette sat at a desk that was hers now, not borrowed. A stack of ledgers in front of her and a fountain pen resting beside her hand. A new one. A gift from Julian on the day the partnership papers were signed. Engraved along the barrel with 3 words. Finally, truly seen. Lily had started coming by the office after school some afternoons. Comfortable now in a building she once feared to walk near. Sitting in the corner chair doing homework while Julian, against every instinct his old life had trained into him, taught her patiently how to read a balance sheet. That evening, as the courtyard lanterns flickered on and the last of the daylight turned the wrought iron balconies gold, Julian found Odette exactly where he always found her. Quietly working, quietly certain. A woman who had spent most of her life being overlooked and had finally stopped allowing it. He didn't say anything grand. He simply set a small velvet box beside her ledger. And when she opened it, the plain gold ring inside caught the lantern light the same way her red dress once had. Unapologetic and entirely hers to wear. "I'm not asking you to change anything about yourself," Julian said. "I'm asking you to let me stand beside the woman you already are. For the rest of however long we both get." Odette looked up at him. At the man who had once been feared by an entire city and now stood in front of her looking more uncertain than she'd ever seen him. And she reached for his hand the way she'd once reached for it in a warehouse full of danger. Steady, sure, and entirely unafraid. "Yes," she said, "every day of it. Somewhere in this city, tonight, there is a woman who has spent years being looked past. Told in 100 small ways that her time for being chosen has come and gone." Odette's story is a reminder that being underestimated is not the same as being unworthy. And that the right person doesn't need you to shrink to be loved completely. Sometimes it simply takes one dress, one quiet decision to stop hiding, and one person finally paying attention for everything to change. If Odette and Julian's story moved something in you tonight, let us know in the comments which moment hit hardest. And stay close, because the next story is already waiting for you, right where this one leaves off.